Hello and welcome to the highlights of this week on the Politics Hub. The Christmas season is now upon us in earnest, but there's been little festive cheer for the Prime Minister, battling to regain the front foot on both legal and illegal migration. There were plans on both fronts, with measures designed to reduce net migration by 300,000 and a treaty with Rwanda to deliver on Rishi Sunak's central pledge to stop the boats. And if all that wasn't enough, his predecessor, Boris Johnson, was in front of the COVID inquiry, being pressed on his and the government's record in dealing with the pandemic. And Russia stood accused of trying to meddle in the UK's democracy. Well, let's get started with my interview with Danny Kruger, a leading light of the New Conservatives group, which has pushed for strong action on immigration. First things first, what do you make of the Rwanda bill published today?
Well, it was only published an hour or two ago, so I haven't been able to make a considered view yet, and I'm going to be working with colleagues and with legal advisors on that in the coming days. But I'm encouraged by the headlines. I think it's really important that the government has asserted in absolutely unequivocal terms that the law of Parliament is sovereign, that no international treaties or previous laws or conventions can trump a parliamentary statute, and that is the essential principle that we need to assert. They're also making clear through the new treaty with Rwanda that people who are removed there will not be removed on to other countries, which of course was the concern in the Supreme Court. So I'm encouraged by what we've heard so far, but we need to look closely at the detail.
It's not exactly encouraging, is it, that we're understanding that the immigration minister, the guy who's fronted this bill, who's been on the studios defending it, Robert Jenrick, is resigning?
It's not good. I've only just heard this, and I haven't yet seen the reasons that Robert's given, but I am concerned about that because he's been an excellent immigration minister. He's been championing in government and in cabinet for the tough measure that I think we need.
I mean, he's not convinced by the bill. He's not convinced by the bill.
Well, exactly. So we need. No. Well, I haven't yet heard what his reasons are. I need to understand what it is that he objects to, and as I say, I need to look closely at it myself, as do the colleagues that I work with. So it's too soon to make a definitive judgment on the bill. I agree it's very concerning and unfortunate that the immigration minister, who I have great respect for, has chosen to leave government today. That's a bad sign, but as I say, I need to look closely at the bill to understand whether I think it'll work.
You say that one of the things that you're encouraged by is that the bill deals with one of the Supreme Court's concerns was that people could be returned to their country of origin. But does this not lead to quite an extraordinary circumstance where if you're a successful asylum seeker and you stay in Rwanda, if you're unsuccessful, then you come back to the UK?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the treaty actually allows everybody who goes to Rwanda to be settled there. So I don't expect that we'll be receiving many people back. So the arrangement is that Rwanda is happy to receive the people who come illegally to the UK and to make a new life in Rwanda, whether they're there as asylum seekers or not. But the most important thing, Sophie, if I can emphasise, and this is the crucial point about this, people do not want to be sent off to Rwanda. They're trying to get to the UK, and I understand why that should be, but I'm afraid we won't have them. So what needs to happen is that people who do arrive here illegally are swiftly detained and swiftly removed. That will have an enormous deterrent effect, as we've seen with other schemes which have caused the flow of migrants, illegal migrants from, for instance, Albania, to dry up to almost nothing because we started removing Albanians straight back to their own country. So deterrence works. If people understand that they're going to be shipped off to Rwanda if they arrive here illegally, then they will stop coming. That is the purpose of this. It's not to outsource all, tens of thousands of people a year to Rwanda. It's to stop people crossing the English Channel and to try and get to this country illegally.
There's another potentially big problem with it, and that's the Rwandans getting cold feet themselves. The government of Rwanda putting out a statement this evening to say it's always been important to both Rwanda and the UK to act lawfully. Without lawful behaviour by the UK, Rwanda would not be able to continue with the Migration and Economic Development Partnership. It sounds an awful lot like they're worried about the UK government breaking the law, and that they're basically saying if that happens, then they'll pull out.
Well, what I detect there is an agreement on the part of the Rwandan government to support the UK government in making the case for this bill, and I respect that. But the fact is, this will be lawful. That's the definition of the rule of law in the United Kingdom, is that Parliament is sovereign and acts of Parliament have supremacy. And and therefore the rule of law is conformed with when Parliament passes a bill. So of course it will comply with the rule of law. It will also, in our view, comply with international law, with the European Convention. So, but the question is, if the European Court decides it doesn't, what do we do about that? And the bill, I'm glad to say, asserts that we will make our own judgment, because we are not going to be bound by international legal rulings if the sovereign parliament of the UK has spoken. So I'm not concerned by what the Rwandan government has said. I understand it, and I'm confident that we will comply with the rule of law, because that's the premise of a parliamentary statute.
Just finally, Rishi Sunak has made this the defining issue of his premiership in many ways. If he can't get this right, if he can't bring his backbenchers with him, if it doesn't work, is it over for him?
Listen, I am really confident that the party will be able to come together in the right place. It's really, really difficult. I have great respect for why people are worried about apparent breaches of international law. They want us to maintain our good reputation abroad. I think we can and will do that by passing an act of Parliament which asserts the legality of what we're doing. I think the Conservative Party will come together in the right place on this. It's absolutely essential that we do unite and go into the next election as one party on one platform. I think we need to get into the right place so that we can fight an election as a united party, and that place is where the country wants us to be, where the public is, wanting control of our borders, wanting to stop the boats. And that's what the government's committed to doing. That's what all my colleagues want to do, and I'm hopeful that we'll get there.
OK, thank you very much for making time for us. Democracy under attack. That's a picture painted today by a government report which has found that Russia's intelligence services targeted high-profile politicians and civil servants with cyber espionage as part of a sustained attempt to meddle in UK political processes. Well, the Foreign Office has summoned the Russian ambassador and said that 2 individuals are being sanctioned, one of them a serving FSB officer. I'm pleased to say we're now joined by Sir Richard Dearlove, the former head of the Secret Intelligence Service, himself a hacking target. Thank you for being with us. How concerned are you by this news?
Well, I've been concerned about it for a long period of time, and I think it's very good that the government have decided to publicise this, because it does heighten the vigilance of individuals and organisations, the seriousness of the threat and the extent. Yeah, it's good that they're drawing attention to it, and it's been going on for a long period of time already.
So what kind of information do you think they are trying to get?
Well, look, we're in a situation of grey warfare with Russia because of Ukraine. And as far as the Russians are concerned, the information world is part of the battlefield. And they will use material that they gather to manipulate the media, to push their own view, to distort the views of their opponents. They're very clever at this game. They were a leading power, let's say, in this area during the Cold War, and they're bringing all the skills that they developed during the Cold War to bear now on countries like the UK, essentially driven by the crisis and the war in Ukraine.
We've obviously got 2 big elections coming up in the UK and also in the US. Do you think that this kind of warfare, if you like, could have an impact on them?
Well, of course it will. I mean, I think we'll see evidence of meddling. And I'm of the view that probably they don't have the capability to, as it were, affect election results, but they certainly have the capability to, well, do much more than annoy us, to complicate things and, as it were, to distort maybe particular debates, particular instance. You just used that example of Jeremy Corbyn producing these documents about, privatisation of the national health. And I mean, I had my emails, I had my ciphered emails hacked back in the first half of 2022, when I was very active with a group on Brexit issues. I was exercising my democratic rights as a citizen to be highly active politically on certain issues. And yet the Russians giving this material to journalists who were in their pocket, then spun it as a conspiracy, with me at the centre of a conspiracy, trying to, bring down Theresa May's government. So, that's a very good example of how they can twist material and reinterpret it. Unfortunately, although, the news of the hack against me was a big-ish news story at the time, the mainline media in the West didn't really touch the content of the emails because they realised that, well, there was issues of privacy for a start, but on the other hand, there were also the question that it had been through Russian hands, so you couldn't trust that the emails were exactly as they had existed when I wrote them or when I received them.
Do you think that across the board we need to up the way that we deal with cybersecurity, in government, for example? Do we need to be a bit more aware of what's going on?
Yeah, we need to be absolutely aware of the threat. Every citizen needs to be aware of the threat and the seriousness of this problem. It isn't a joke. And the one thing I can say with confidence is, look, the UK is good at this. It's good at cybersecurity. It's good at cyber defense. We have formidable capabilities. And, we have the Alliance of Five Eyes, which gives us global reach and a strong global alliance. So, we have the means to punch back at the Russians on this issue, but we should make it absolutely clear to them that this is completely unacceptable behaviour. And I'm very pleased at what the government's done, and I'm reassured by them taking that. But will it stop? No, it won't. It'll carry on. And people who are, as it were, unaware or, haven't got their guard up will be taken advantage of. The irony is that at the same time as I was hacked, they hacked Paul Mason, whose name you will know, who politically is in a very different place from me, and he was much crosser and much more furious about it than I was.
Thank you so much. Always a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the programme.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. It's wonderful talking to you again. All the very best.
Now, I absolutely love a good political cartoon. Never has the saying, "a picture tells 1,000 words," been more true. And most politicians say they don't actually mind being drawn, even though the cartoons are usually less than flattering. They're even known to request drawings of themselves to hang on their toilet walls. Well, earlier this week, the Political Cartoon of the Year awards were held. I spoke to the cartoonists Patrick Blower and Christian Adams, plus Tim Benson from the Political Cartoon Gallery. Great to have you guys here. I'm a big fan of the political cartoon, I have to say. Always love a good political cartoon. Tim, what's the idea of the awards then?
Well, the awards have been running for 23 years. And the thing about political cartoons is that this country probably has the greatest heritage in the world. And I produce a book called Britain's Best Political Cartoons every year. And there's no other country that has the depth of talent that could actually, that I could do that book in. So the awards have been going for, I said, 23 years. And every year we have a prominent politician come along and present the awards. That is the Cartoonist of the Year and the Cartoon of the Year. And
we've got some of the winners here with us in the studio, lucky for us. Christian, congratulations on your award win. This is one of yours, right?
Yes.
Rishi Sunak, Rishi as Barbie.
Yes.
So talk us through this.
It was the gift that every cartoonist wants. It's we love joining two stories, usually political, with a cultural event, like a film poster or something like that. And Barbie, the Prime Minister was in economic trouble, as usual. That was an ongoing problem. But Barbie was the biggest cultural event of the year. And it was a gift that I couldn't, refuse. And the cherry on the cake was their names are a little bit similar, Barbie and Rishi. So too much. It's just great.
And this one, the political...
This one, the political cartoon of the year.
Yes, political cartoon of the year. And Patrick, talk to us about your cartoon that you chose.
Well, I suppose this was a big meeting between Xi Jinping and Putin. Two people who we can definitely call the baddies, in a sort of Manichaean world. There are goodies and baddies, they're definitely baddies. I love cartoons where there's no words, ideally. And I wanted to sum up a situation just in their body language. No words, simple picture. And I think this conveys kind of everything I wanted to say about the relationship between these two. The sort of mad, macho man Putin, who's ultimately completely subservient to the real player,
the
Xi
real
Jinping.
player in the race.
And to me, that just kind of summed up how I felt about it, with no caption.
How long does it take to make a cartoon?
Well, I've got a very different job to Patrick because I work for the Evening Standard and my deadline is 11 o'clock in the morning.
Blimey, so not quick then, yeah.
Yes, and Patrick works for the next day's issue. So it's just because it's an evening newspaper. So I have 5-6 hours to do it. You know.
And how is it done on computer? Sorry, I'm so ignorant on this stuff. Is it like, pen and paper? Is it paint? Is it what kind of medium?
Well, every cartoonist works differently.
Yeah.
Patrick will tell you completely. He works completely differently to me.
Yeah.
I do ink first, like old-fashioned scratch sheet on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then I Photoshop colours in.
Yeah.
And Patrick works completely differently.
How do you do that?
Well, I do an old-fashioned bit, because I go for a long walk in the morning after I've read the news and just mull it over. I mean, my deadline is leisurely compared to Christian's, because I have all day. But I do go for a long walk, mull the news over in my head, come up with roughs on a pen and paper, email them to my editor. And then at lunchtime, I get onto a tablet and I draw on one of these graphic tablets.
That's so interesting.
And I use layers and it's
ways
way quicker. I quite often have to make corrections.
Yeah.
And the old days of using Tipex to paint over things, can't be done with that anymore.
That's all in
So
the
with
past.
computers, it's amazing. You can change any aspect of saying, well, I need Putin to the right a bit, or I need to make that flag bigger.
You can do it.
It's a cinch. And I've got so used to that.
You mentioned, Tim, that you always have a political speaker.
Yes.
Suella Braverman.
Wonderful.
I mean, there's been a lot of cartoons of her, haven't there, recently?
There have. I think we've got some here tonight.
Look at some, hopefully.
Yes.
There, this one
there
here.
we are. That's,
oh, here we go. This
by
is
Peter
the.
Brooks.
So
In the
good you showed
Times?
it twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you think she's going to take it? Do you think she's going to make any reference to some of these cartoons? I mean, they're not the most complimentary, are they?
No, but it shows her importance. Well, Churchill said the problem was that when politicians, they start to worry when they stop appearing in cartoons rather than when they do. So it does show a politician's importance of when they appear.
So thank you very much
Thank you.
for coming on the programme.
Thank you very much.
Another winners of the Elwood Atfield Political Cartoon of the Year awards there. Well, let's pick up with Sunder and Lucia, shall we? I love a political cartoon.
So good. The Rishi one, the In Action Man.
The Barbie
so
one,
good.
yeah, it's very
Very
good.
smart.
Very good. Any particular favourite cartoons over the years, or?
Yeah, they used to be really important. I'm sure they still are. The gallery is really, really brilliant. But there still are books of them. And so on. I mean, some politicians are a real godsend, aren't they? Thatcher,
Yeah.
Blair Brown. I think Boris Johnson is just the cartoonist dream. And then some of them are a bit tricky, actually. And I think the one politician no cartoonists really got their handle on yet is Keir Starmer. Sort of bloke in suit. What can we do? He might be
Someone
here
needs
for
to
some
protect
years
it.
to come. We need to kind of create an idea of what the caricaturable bit is.
I think it was a few years ago, there was a Trog exhibition at the Cartoon Museum in Bloomsbury, and I think some of that stuff was just unbelievable. Sort of the Blair one, the Hand of History on My Shoulder stuff that just, again, like, I think the talent and the imagination that goes into kind of being able to put across those messages.
Now, if you were listening to the Prime Minister's Downing Street News conference on the Rwanda bill, right, you might have noticed, as we did, right, that he had a bit of a prominent verbal tick, right?
What's happening here is we're delivering on what I said. Right. My patience with this has worn thin. Right. It's ridiculous what's going on. Right. I want to finish the job. Right. Question is for the Labour Party. Right. But I'm not hearing from anyone else that they've got a plan. Right. We've arrested literally hundreds and hundreds of people. Right, in those raids, we've stopped them claiming asylum, we've stopped them claiming modern slavery, right? All of those avenues have been shut down, right? So, that's the simple truth. And the proof is in the pudding, right? I'm not about talking, I'm about action.
Absolutely brilliant video there by our producer, Emily. I should say I do this all the time, right? And I also say OK all the time. OK. So I have sympathy. But I mean, he felt nervous, didn't he? I think.
Well, that's not going to win him the debating championship at Winchester, is it? I think his housemaster would admit this. Perhaps that's how he got Bill Cash and everybody. It's a sort of... If you keep saying right, that appeals to that side of the party. So they're going to feel OK. That's a subliminal message he's putting out there. He's keeping them comfortable.
It.
Yeah, right?
right. That's
the man on my right said.
That's why I chose the seat.
I think, so one of the most cruel things you can ever do to somebody in our profession is verbatim them.
Yeah.
Because you verbatim somebody, what you thought was great and eloquence. But there is the nervousness, and I think there's a nervousness as well. There's a scratchiness that's always there when he gets criticised. But the nervousness is this could have been high. This was a high noon moment. I think we all anticipated. Was he going to say? Was he going to fight or die?
Was it wise to call an emergency press?
No.
Hasn't he elevated?
No.
If your old boss Tony had said, "Why, for the love of God, do you want to elevate it to that?" Right?
Oh, no.
I did that.
I mean, it's like when at the time of the expenses scandal. If I'd been in number 10, I'd have said, Gordon, the expenses scandal is about the House of Commons, not about the government. Do not do a video about it. So it looks like you're taking responsibility.
Right.
He's right.
You're both right. Lots of winners on the Approach show today. Thank you both very much indeed. Well, that's all for this week's Politics Hub highlights. And remember, you can catch up on all the latest news from the Politics Hub 24/7. Just scan the QR code. Thanks for watching. See you again on Monday at 7. Goodbye.